Here's an unboxing video. This came just now. Something I ordered last weekend. And yeah, so a graded loose vintage Star Wars figure. And as you can see, it's FX-7 UKG graded. It's graded 80. Take it out of the plastic wrapper. We'll have a good look at it. So it's good old FX-7. It says Star Wars FX-7 1980, made in Hong Kong #1 stamp, archive number. So if you saw that video I did last weekend, all that action, Saturday night at the eBay, you'd have seen me bid on this. So it's got the #1 there, you can just see it there. Made in Hong Kong. So it's got 3 circles plus an inner circle which is larger than the other circles. And I looked for information on this. There's not much about it. I mean, you can find stuff on High as a Kite and Rebel Scum, but there's not much information on the #1 stamp. See, there's a lot of mold imperfections along the midsection. And then we have the head, the arm. So made in Hong Kong #1 stamp. I know the same seller, he's got a #2 stamp which he describes as POC, that ends tomorrow. You can see the rippling there. I actually looked at my childhood one and that's a #2 stamp, so we can compare that one to this. You can see that they've put it so the head's up. I can show you more what the figure does. Oh no, you can see it move up and down. I've got this carded on the German General Mills card, Empire Strikes Back, and 48 back Kenner Empire Strikes Back card, tri-logo. So yeah, quite a cool looking figure. Love the card back on this one, very nice. So I'll get my figure from childhood. So here we have FX-7, the one I just bought, which is the #1 stamp, and this is the #2 stamp, I do believe. So unless it changed somehow. So you can see the #2 there, made in Hong Kong. So yeah, there's the #2. I mean, this one's a darker grey and there's none of the imperfections that this one has in the body. You can really see the striations on the midsection where the arms are. Even in the lower portion you can see striations or marbling effect, whereas this one does have it, that you can see him there, but on the midsection it's very smooth. Quite a nice figure. It's got very red eye. whereas this eye is more obviously the one from my childhood is better painted, the eye certainly. Exterminate! FX-7, the Dalek. So yeah, very cool to see. I'll show you both the date stamps or number stamps. So they're very similar COOs markings. So you can see the number 1 there. And there's the number 2 there. Both say made in Hong Kong, 1980, Lucasfilm Limited. And there's a number 2 on eBay ending tomorrow that is described as the POC. But you can see the 2 numbers there, 1 and 2. There's not much information about why it was changed to number 1 and 2. I mean, I guess what piqued my interest is the walrus man. There's a Spanish walrus man with the number 1 stamp just on the back of its leg, which is the complete removal of the COO apart from the number 1 from 1978. And so yeah, so we've got the number 1 and number 2 molds there, both described as Hong Kong. They look great together. Let's look at the number 1 stamp. You can see lots of mold imperfections, striations and bubbling. I really should get my PVP book out and have a good look at it. POC. See marks in the head, almost a marbling effect. It's not perfectly flat. There's the number 2 mould. It is much more smooth on the top. Still has some imperfections. Has a smooth central core, very slight imperfections. That's the number 2 there. I mean, this one's in quite good condition really. FX-7 medical droid, quite a cool figure. See the marks there. Oh, there's 2 indentations there, square and a rectangle. A little nick there or something. There's the head. Very cool. I mean, there are differences with molds because I think my FX-7 on the 48 back card, the head's quite different where the black rectangles are placed compared to this version. I mean, most likely this came on a Palatoy card. You will be destroyed. Who is the doctor? Very cool figure. And then this one. I mean, the marks look quite the same where the black rectangles are placed. Really, I think I need to get the PBP book and have a good look at this. I'm not saying this is the Spanish figure, it's probably really is the Hong Kong. So that's number 2, that's number 1. But you can really see all the sort of marbling imperfections on the body. Certainly looks rougher around this section here where my finger's pointing to. See, that's a lot smoother. This has a more silvery tone to it. Whereas this is still silvery, metallic, but greyish. This video is going to end up being really long. Let's see, for comparison's sake. Trying to match up the details on the body. I mean, yeah, that's sculpting is much improved on this version. That's definitely interesting if you're really into your vintage Star Wars figures and variants. It's almost got a leathery look to it. Just trying to look at the heads. Pretty similar. Well, let's get the PBP book. Okay, I've got the book here. This is the PBP book, volume 1. Very useful, PBP POC. And this is the FX-7, the POC version. So the COO markings are this one, which is the number 2, which is like the one I've got from my childhood. So they just used a Hong Kong figure. I believe this is a Hong Kong figure. I mean, this one looks like a darker, more silvery grey, whereas this one looks lighter in tone. But it could just be the photography. I mean, the eye is pretty similar. Blood red colour. So these are the characteristics of the POC FX-7, which has the number 2 stamp. Has imperfections. That's the arm of the POC. So it's quite a different figure. So it tells you the dots on the head are painted pale orange on the Spanish figure. These are quite a bright orange. So hard to tell I'd say that's definitely this version, the Hong Kong. You can see there's a little mould imperfection there. There's a good picture of the dots from above. So I'm gonna say this is the Hong Kong figure, which is from my childhood. Most likely sold on a Palatoy card. This one is probably definitely a Hong Kong, because it's not the POC mould, which is the number 2, which is taken from this mould figure. I mean, these have just been sent to Spain and painted. HK POC. I mean, it might be nice to look at the PBP version, which you would have probably found on Try Logos, or that would be the No-Coup as well. But we'll have a look on the, see what they say about the PBP version. To my shame, there's no PBP FX-7, so we only have the POC as an example, and that's described as the number 2 date stamp. And so our puzzle continues. I mean, if you look at that, how leathery it looks, the texture of the midsection is quite a perplexing enigma, as some would say. So we'll just take this as what it's labelled, which is the Hong Kong number 1 stamp, and we'll say this is the number 2 stamp, Hong Kong as well, and that's that. This is high as a kite, and this is the mould 1, which I assume would be the one I've got. So I've got the mould 2 there, mould 3, Hong Kong. So mould 2 made it into the No-Coup, and then you've got mould 2 Hong Kong. Then you've got all of this stuff here, very interesting. Then you've got the COO marks. Mould 2, mould 3. That's the No-Coup. No-Coup Hong Kong, or mould. Is that No-Coup Hong Kong? No, that's Hong Kong COO 2. That's the No-Coup. High as a Kite, this is called. Goes through all the figures, so it's a really useful site. Vintage Action Figure Variation Guide, so it's worth using. This is Variant Villain, so this is what they show for the FX-7 stamps. You've got the number 1 stamp, which is the one I got graded. You've got the number 2 stamp, which I showed you, that's loose. Then there's the other COOs. This is the Hong Kong. It's got a little bit there. This is another Hong Kong. So it shows you the families. Then there's this one with a smaller dot there, and a walkie there. Then we've got family group 3, which has a small one in the top corner there, and that looks like a 2 there. Then we've got this one, which is by the very famous W. Woodfett. The outer ring is freely movable in the still mold. The cavity numbers 1, 2, and the H can be rotated to any possible point before injecting the plastic. So those are the COO molds for the FX-7. So those are the no COO ones, because there's no Hong Kong on those. So you find those on the Tri logo, I assume. And then these are the two I'm showing, which is group 1 family. Okay. For a long time I didn't really appreciate this figure, especially on the card back, but maybe my interest was piqued when I found out about that £10,000 Palatoy FX-7 selling on Vectis years ago, and because I definitely had a couple of Tri logos carded, yeah, and that's quite a nice one because it's got a sort of the background colour on the card is slightly different. I think it's yellow, whereas on the mainstream Kenner card it's blue. And yeah, so but over time I've grown to appreciate this from a sort of visual perspective in terms of the card backs. It's a great image used on the card, and so more recently I picked up that 48 back, which is a Kenner ESB card, and I think that's got the Palatoy address on the back. And I also maybe in 2018 or 19 I picked up that German FX-7 on the General Mills card, and I'm glad I did. I didn't care if it was a Toy Tony or not. I just thought that it's a beautiful item. It's graded 85, and it's just, you know, when is something like that ever going to come up again? And I got it for a great price, and yeah, so I think there's maybe a sort of renaissance of FX-7 going on at the moment, where this figure's appreciation is growing. I'm talking utter drivel. I'm trying to think of long words and sound clever and all that sort of stuff, but you know, I think this figure has been in the past underrated, or maybe sort of not quite in the same league as 21B, but it's just a great figure. I mean, maybe because it was such an odd figure. I mean, the way you could play with it as a child was, I mean, it has no legs. I mean, it's got these arms that you can pull out, but it's more or less it's quite a static figure. You could have the arms pulled out, and that was about it. But I mean, if you ever set up a rebel base as a child, you know, this was quite an essential figure. And I mean, I never had the 21B, but I did have this one. So yeah, very nice figure. I mean, this one from childhood's like in great condition. I mean, it's definitely as good as this one, if not better. So yeah, great looking figure. Okay, so this is not a POC then, but you know, it's still quite an unusual figure, because you know, maybe it's just that sort of texturing there in the midsection, you know, it's sort of like I describe it, leatherish texture to it. But maybe that's just over the years the plastic's starting to break down, or the mold itself. Who knows? Who knows indeed. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to take better care of this one though. They look great together. Two FX-7s sitting in the wall. One named Peter, one named Paul. Fly away Peter, fly away Paul. Anyway, forgive me for waffling on, but you know, I just bought this, so it was kind of expensive, more expensive than I intended. You can watch the video on eBay, that eBay video. I might do another eBay video tomorrow. I think the stuff's, it's the same seller ending tomorrow, but I think Star Action Figures has got some stuff as well. I think it's all Sunday, so I might do it. Nice figure though. So that's the number 1 stamp, which you can see there, and there's the number 2. Let's get them together. So these are two very similar molds, whereas other FX-7s have quite different molds. So yeah, it's worth checking those out. Variant Villain's probably your best place to go to, but that's very interesting. Okay, so time to end this torture now, and I've got another unboxing to do. Alright, cheers, goodbye.